We have some news about something we've been covering closely all summer long. There is a report from CBS Sports that the Sixers could be preparing to have Ben Simmons in camp on the roster after trade rumors all summer. What do you think the chances are Ben Simmons starts the season with the Sixers?
So let's not cloud what you saw with Ben Simmons in the fourth quarter against the Atlanta Hawks with the fact that he's a uber talented player that just doesn't attempt shots outside of the paint. So those are two different things. So if you're you're trying to move him after that, you're just not going to get the value play in return. He's going to have to come to camp and play his value back up. And when you do an extension with Joel Embiid, I'm pretty sure you talk to him about the future of Ben Simmons. And so you bring him back to camp, you start the season with him, you hope that he plays remotely like he was playing last year as he became a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, as he can flirt with triple doubles. There's so many valuable things he can bring to the table. Then if and when that value re-elevates, that's when you try to move him, especially for what they're going to be asking for in return.
Absolutely. When you look at the sort of timeline of this, you mentioned their loss to the Hawks. It was disappointing. He was particularly disappointing in the fourth quarter. He got all the blame. You know, the blame pie, they just threw that thing right in his face after the series was over. So then we expect there to be a deal. No deal is made before the draft. You think, all right, maybe there'll be a deal on draft day. No deal is made on draft day. If right now, at the end of August, there is no deal, likely he will be back, and they'll wait to see what happens before the trade deadline or mid-season, because maybe a team that has somebody that's interesting to the 76ers doesn't start very well and thinks that Ben Simmons can help. And hopefully Ben Simmons does sort of change his reputation, because the last time we saw him on a basketball court, he didn't perform that well. So like you, I think he does start the season with the Sixers, but I think Daryl Morey spends every single day calling other GMs trying to change the fact that he is on the Sixers, because these two don't seem committed to each other long term. Jalen, Ben Simmons was watching Chris Paul and the Suns as they made their way into the finals. It was a great NBA finals, and in that environment, CP3 said he got addicted to going to the finals. Do you think he will make a return trip to feed the addiction?
You know how much I love Chris Paul, and shout out to the support he's given to JRLA scholars over the years. They get a chance to go to his camp in North Carolina. I'll say this though, Dan Marino, when he went to the Super Bowl, he felt the same way. When I went to the finals in 2000, I felt the same way. And unfortunately for Chris Paul, I'm happy he got his 4 years and his top dollar, but I don't believe the Phoenix Suns are going to be going back to the NBA Finals. And by no means is that a diss. It was a special season, and the conference continues to improve. I'm not saying that they're not going to be a top 4 team. I believe they'll still be a top 4 team. I still think they'll get out of the first round. I still think they're a contending caliber team. But have you seen the Lakers roster?
Yes, I have.
Okay, they still have LeBron and AD, right?
Yes, they do.
And the latter guy's going to be dominant this year. I think we forget how good he really is. And let me see, did Russ average a triple-double more last year? That was last year. Okay, got it. So that's why I say Chris Paul, I'm happy he's addicted to the finals, but I don't think the Phoenix Suns will be getting back.
Yeah, the only way the Phoenix Suns come back is if some of their young players make absolute leaps. Like Ayton turns into like a perennial all-star, and their young wings just really step up and get better, because Chris Paul, Booker cannot do it alone. But I don't really see that happening, but I'm glad he's addicted. And like you, when you got addicted to the finals, I do not believe that he is going to. Ever since the 76ers lost in the playoffs, Ben Simmons has been the person. He's been the person, the lightning rod for criticism that everyone is pointing to as the problem for the 76ers. He reportedly does not have contact with the team this offseason. Is there a chance, do you believe, that Ben Simmons will not report to camp? Could he hold out, or could this be like a James Harden situation? What do you think the future is with Simmons and the Sixers?
I think ultimately he ends up at camp. It's not in either side's best interest for him not to be at camp. It's definitely not in his best interest to do what James Harden did, and that's show up and be out of shape, because he's not a former MVP like James Harden is. So with that being said, I don't believe this deal happens this offseason, Jacoby. Now, the way you and I believe in Ben Simmons, we can't ignore the bizarre fourth quarter performances in the playoffs this year. And so he's going to have to build that value back up. If I'm on the phone with you and you talk about give me a player and give me like 2 or 3 first-round picks, not after that series. Like, we saw the Paul George deal, the Drew Holiday deal. Like, there have been deals where multiple picks got exchanged, but not when they passing up layups in front of Trae Young at the hoop. So he's going to have to build his value back up. They're not going to want to move him for less. So don't be surprised if this goes into training camp, if it goes into the season before he's actually moved.
Well, we will see what happens. I do believe he does get moved, but he might start the season on the 76ers. And every single August, I see the same thing, Jalen Rose. I see Ben Simmons on Instagram making three-pointers. Every single August, he is on the gram making three-pointers. I wouldn't mind if he actually did that during the season, because obviously unlocking a jump shot and his confidence internally and externally on the perimeter is important for him moving forward. The Los Angeles Lakers were put at number 3 in the NBA on the power rankings. The Bucks did win the championship, but you can't tell me that Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and the rest of the Lakers should not be ahead of the Bucks on this power rankings, Mr. Rose.
So initially when you said third, I wasn't necessarily mad at it. And then I thought about why, and it totally makes sense. I want to remind you something.
Okay.
There's a valedictorian walking the face of the earth representing the king of the court in the NBA. You know what his name is? Giannis the Greek Freak Antetokounmpo. You saw what he just did in the finals?
Yes, I did.
Did you see what he just did in the finals?
Yes, I did.
You saw
Yes, I
Chris
did.
Middleton make a name for himself as a closer? You see Drew Holiday getting steals and locking down on D? You know they play in the Eastern Conference also, right? Which means 50 of their games going to be against Eastern Conference foes. So therefore, they're number 2 because they're going to have a better regular season record than today your Los Angeles Lakers. Now, for the Nets, they right where they should be. The Bucks are as well. And don't be so upset about the Lakers not being 1 or 2. You just want them healthy at their Western Conference 3 seed or so when the playoffs start.
If you consider that all of the players are available and healthy, the Lakers have a better roster than the Bucks. And you mentioned the Nets at number 1. You remember, I'm old enough to remember, the Nets and the Bucks went to overtime in Game 7, and Kyrie wasn't even on the floor. The Lakers were one of the best teams in the Western Conference last year, regardless of record. They dealt with some injuries, and they added Russell Westbrook. They added a lot of other interesting pieces, too, like Malik Monk and Dwight Howard. They are going to dominate in the Western Conference, and they're also going to rest a lot. You know that LeBron James brought in Westbrook, so he said, you know what, I'll play about 70 games. I'll play about 70 games this year, and I'll give 12 just to Russ so he can score 30 and get the 15 assists and 15 rebounds. We know that's going to happen. Jalen Rose, would you, in your personal power rankings, put the Bucks ahead of the Lakers?
Yes, for the reasons I just told you. They play in the East. They are a younger group, which means they're going to value the regular season more. Their best player, Giannis, is extremely durable and dominant. He's only going to get better. You saw him making free throws, okay? That's just going to add to his arsenal. And so, yes, the power rankings got it right on that one. And you know what else I can't wait to see? A full season of the Nets. We only saw them less than 20 games last year. And you mentioned KD, the offseason salutatorian, the way he played in the playoffs, and then the way he played in the Olympics. But a healthy Kyrie and obviously James Harden starting the season in shape, that's going to be a marvel to watch.
Absolutely. It does feel like we are on a collision course like we were with the Cavs and the Warriors years between the Nets and the Lakers, and what a finals that would be. But